nothing but the truth.
When Donald Trump takes over as US President on January 20th, he will implement what he says would be America's most radical immigration policy ever. India and Indians are also directly in his firing line, and we would be severely impacted. Facing the brunt of these changes are the 1 million, or in Indian terms 10 lakh legal migrants and their families who are temporarily working in the US with H-1B visas. 1 million Indian legal migrants with H-1B visas. That's the first lot that will be impacted. Trump also said that on his first day of his presidency, he would carry out the largest ever deportation of illegal immigrants. For India, that means that there are over 725,000 or 7,25,000 Indians who are presumed to have entered America illegally and could face deportation. So on his first day in office, Trump may order the deportation of 18,000 Indian illegal immigrants who have exhausted all their legal recourse. Keep that number in mind, 18,000. Normally, annually, those that deported from America used to be around 3,000 to 5,000. This could go to 18,000 of them. This, of course, would prove to be a major political headache for the Narendra Modi government if it is done so, especially as a majority of these illegal migrants are either from Punjab or Gujarat. Hello, I'm Raj Chengappa of India Today and your host for Nothing But the Truth. This is my weekly X-ray of key issues that concern you without holding back on the truth. Now, I had mentioned two major groups in India who will be badly hit by Donald Trump's extreme immigration policy. One is the 1 million H-1B visa holders who have temporary work permits for the US, and the other is the 7.25 lakh illegal Indian immigrants who will also be impacted. These are both huge numbers, and along with their families and dependents, is expected to impact over 10 million Indians if this does happen. So let's start with the illegal immigrants first. There are an estimated 11 million illegal immigrants in the US. Those from Mexico alone account for close to 50% of them, followed by El Salvador and India with 7% each. And I mentioned the number that we have, 7.25 lakh illegal immigrants that are sitting in the US at the moment. Now, in his first term as president between 2017 and 2021, Donald Trump deported an average of 200,000 or 2 lakh illegal immigrants. This is an annual thing that he did. Now Trump wants to push that number to 1 million every year or 10 lakh every year. That is 5 times the number that he did in his first term. Most of these illegal immigrants would be identified first and then sent to detention centers. So there is a process that will happen. They will then face adversarial administration proceedings before immigration judges. There will be a formal hearing process where those charged with illegal entry would be entitled to legal counsel. And this process could take a couple of months. Only after the judge passes a verdict can the US immigration and custom enforcement officials proceed with the deportation of these illegal immigrants. But before they can be deported, the concerned countries have to be notified and must acknowledge them as their citizens. The main recourse of these illegal Indian immigrants is to apply for asylum claiming political, social, or religious persecution. Now, the average time for an asylum application to reach fruition is about 4 years, and the maximum is 7 years. So, what we are saying is that this could be, though there are so many Indians or illegal, this could be a process. But as I had mentioned earlier, 18,000, the legal Indians who are illegally there, their hearings are already over and they are ready for deportation. But the others would still get a hearing, and then they would be determined as to whether they're illegal and which country they belong to. That period could take time, but the new Trump administration would push for faster disposal of cases. Now, if droves of illegal Indian immigrants are flown back from America, it, as I had mentioned earlier, will be an enormous political setback for the Narendra Modi government and will definitely impact India-US relations adversely. So that's the first challenge that India would have to face when illegal Indian immigrants are sent back and the impact and outcome of that. Now let's deal with the other contentious issue, which is the concerns over the future of the H-1B visa for those Indians who are temporarily employed in the US. Now, there are indications that the new Trump administration will make this route much tougher and costlier for Indians. Just a bit about the H-1B visa program. This was started in 1990, 35 years ago, and allows a foreigner to be temporarily employed in the US for a period of 3 years. This could be extended for another period of 3 years. There is a current cap of 65,000 foreign professionals annually, along with 20,000 who graduate from American institutions. So the cap totally is 85,000 visas, H-1B visas would be issued. Indians, by the way, Indian techies now account for the maximum number of H-1B visa holders that is granted annually. For instance, in financial year 2023, Indians were granted over 200,000 or 2 lakh visas, which was 78% of the total H-1B visa. So Indians do depend a lot on this mode of entering the US. Of course, when I mentioned that figure, this includes fresh visas and extensions that are there. So 200,000 or 2 lakh visas were issued, and India cornered 74 to 78% of them. That's the kind of thing that we have been used to. Now, Indian IT firms with their affiliates in the US, including the 4 major ones, Infosys, TCS, HCL, and Wipro, also use the H-1B visa route. So apart from the 1 million visa holders that could be impacted, India's IT sector, which exported $105 billion worth of software services to the US, could end up getting hurt should Trump tighten the screws on the H-1B visa. Now let's look at why Donald Trump is getting after the H-1B visas that are issued to all highly skilled individuals, mostly Indian techies that I told you about, and they usually work in the IT sector. Why is Donald Trump doing this? That's because he won his election on the campaign slogan that he would make America great again, the short form being MAGA. And his argument is based on the simple premise that America's perceived decline is because other nations have exploited its generosity to the detriment of the American people. This included its liberal immigration policies, which they claim have been misused by millions of foreigners who have taken away jobs from the American citizens. That's the crux of his argument. Even in his first term as president, Trump had focused on building a great wall on America's border with Mexico to prevent illegal migrants from pouring in. Remember, Mexicans form 50% of the illegal immigrants that have come into America. This time too, Trump won his campaign on the promise of an America First policy and the slogan that he had earlier, Buy American and Hire American. The latter part, Hire American, has become critical. So he is expected to put a lot more crimps on the process of issuing H-1B visas. But even before Donald Trump could take over as president, he takes over on January 20th, a really massive civil war has broken out between his so-called MAGA or Make America Great Again supporters, particularly on the H-1B visa issue. These were divided, and mind you, these are his supporters, were divided into 2 major camps. The camp that favors continuation of H-1B visas is headed by Elon Musk, the tech billionaire and the world's richest individual, who owns, as we know, Tesla, SpaceX, and the social media channel X. Now, Musk is of South Africa origin had come to the US on a H-1B visa before getting his US citizenship. He is an important figure in Trump's administration and has been made chairman of the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE. As its name suggests, it is meant to cut bureaucratic flab by reducing the number of government workers and using tech tools to improve government functioning and efficiency and delivery. Now, Musk got heavily trolled by the other MAGA supporters on X for backing the H-1B program, and in response, he posted a message slamming his critics, saying, and I'm quoting him, "The reason I'm in America, along with so many critical people who built SpaceX, Tesla, and 100 other companies that made America strong, is because of the H-1B visa." And then he added, "I will go to war on this issue. the like of which you cannot possibly comprehend. That were strong words from Elon Musk on the H-1B visa, supporting the continuation of it. Then Vivek Ramaswamy, an American of Indian origin and Musk's co-chair of DOGE, remember he also was a presidential candidate, Republican presidential candidate, before Trump defeated all of them and became the prime contender for the candidacy for the Republican presidency. Now, Ramaswamy backed Musk with a caustic critique of what he said, and I'm just paraphrasing him. He said American culture and standards of education had venerated mediocrity over excellence for way too long. Now that certainly hurt, and it set the cat among the MAGA pigeons. Steve Bannon, a former Trump advisor and a hardline on immigration, hit back saying, and I'm quoting him, "It is not about just H-1B visas. It is about taking American jobs and bringing over essentially what have become indentured servants at lower wages. This thing is a scam by the oligarchs in Silicon Valley." So the accusation by Steve Bannon was that this whole H-1B visas were being used to bring in cheap labor rather than highly skilled people, and this had been exploited by Silicon Valley, which is where the IT companies, the big IT companies are located. Now the MAGA lobby, which is seen as far right, got some really unexpected support from the far left, and this is when Democratic Senator Bernie Sanders, in a post on X, lashed out at Musk for his H-1B stand, saying, and I'm quoting him, "The main function of the H-1B program is not to hire the best and the brightest, but rather to replace good-paying American jobs with low-wage, indentured servants from abroad." Again, the same words almost that Steve Bannon used. And then he goes on to add, Bernie Sanders goes on to add that the cheaper the labor they hire, the more money the billionaires make. The widespread corporate abuse of the H-1B program must be ended. So for once, the far right and the far left seem to be on the same page. The H-1B program must be ended. Of course, Elon Musk and others believe that it should be continued. Now, Bernie Sanders further charged that, and he gave statistics to show that in 2022 and 2023 alone, the top 30 American corporations used the H-1B visa facility to lay off at least 85,000 American workers while hiring over 34,000 H-1B workers. Sanders also claimed that the H-1B workers had fulfilled 33% of all new IT jobs in the US. So you're seeing the arguments that the anti-H-1B visa advocates in the US are throwing out. One is that these have taken American jobs because they were paying lower wages to the H-1B visa entrants. Two, companies have become rich because of that, and the result is a higher unemployment rates in the US, and that should end. That is and of course, the fact that Americans are not being hired and all these foreigners are coming really irks them. Now, with both sides digging in their heels, Musk walked back on his strong stand that he took earlier on the H-1B visa. Remember, he made a very strong stand supporting it. And on X, he said, "I've been very clear that the program is broken and needs major reform." So while he conceded that it is still needed, he said it needs reform. Meanwhile, Donald Trump seems to be approaching the H-1B visa issue with a velvet glove, reserving what we call the iron fist for illegal immigrants. And in an interview to an American daily, he said, "I've always been in favor of the H-1B visas. That's why we have them." So overtly, Donald Trump backed Elon Musk, and therefore the debate stands there. We do not know what he would do once he comes as US president, because he's known to have changed his stand in the past on this. In his first term, in fact, he did denounce the H-1B visas, and Indian experts therefore are very cautious about Trump's reassurances on the H-1B visa. And as I had mentioned, he had taken a really hardline stance against H-1B visas in his first term, and at one stage campaigned to do away with them before he decided that he would rather take some tough measures. So if you see in his first term, which is between 2017 and 2021, he introduced significant regulations, including very tough scrutiny of applications that saw denial rates for visa applications soar to 24% in 2018, and this from the earlier average of 6%. So 24% of the H-1B visa applicants were denied when Trump was in power. Now that, of course, changed when Biden came, but meanwhile, Trump, when he was first-time president, ensured that it would become costlier for companies to use the H-1B route. He did this by increasing the floor salary of $60,000 a year for H-1B workers to closer to the average American salary of $100,000 for similar jobs that were there. Of course, as I mentioned, after Donald Trump lost in 2021, the Biden administration removed many of the restrictions Trump had imposed, and the denial of visa applications under 1HB section dropped to 2%. That's the difference that you're seeing, 24% in Trump's first term, 2% when Biden took over. So how exactly can Trump fiddle or change with the H-1B visas in his second presidency? While it is clear that he is certain to go all out on deporting illegal immigrants, as he has promised, he is likely to proceed with more circumspection on H-1B visas. He's all too aware, Trump is all too aware that too radical a shift on the H-1B visa front could deliver a body blow to America's effort to maintain its technological and innovative edge, especially with China snapping at its heels. Trump may adopt what Project 2025, remember there was a Project 2025 a document, a blueprint prepared by conservators, mainly his former administrative officials just before the elections were held. And this document advocates, when it comes to H-1B visas, a gradual and predictable phase down of the visas. That's the words they use. And Musk has taken this and extended it a little further after he pulled back on his strong statement, and he said the H-1B issue could be easily fixed by raising the minimum salary significantly and adding a yearly cost for maintaining the H-1B. This would make it materially more expensive to hire from overseas than domestically. So what they may do is to, one, put further caps on the H-1B visa, and also then raise the minimum salary that has to be paid, make it more costlier for international companies to use the H-1B route. Now let's look at what Indian IT companies are doing about this new threat on the horizon. They are taking no chances and preparing their defense to ensure that the H-1B program endures. Shivendra Singh, Vice President and Head of Global Trade Development at NASSCOM, the prime organization body for software companies, who spoke to my India Today colleague, said that the notion that H-1B workers were taking away local jobs and in turn causing local unemployment is completely incorrect. He then goes on to point out that the top 8 Indian IT companies accounted for only 8 to 10% of the total H-1B visas issued, and said American technical firms or tech firms accounted for a larger share, which showed that there was a genuine shortage in the use of skilled techies. So it was not that Indian companies were bringing in, Indian IT companies were bringing in the H-1B visa route. Americans companies were highly dependent on the H-1B visa route because there was a shortage of skilled techies in the US. Now, we spoke to another IT industry veteran and former Infosys board member, TV Mohandas Pai, and he argues that the reason for America's digital domination of the world is the availability of high-quality human, physical, and financial capital. Now, Pai points out that Indians handle a large part of the technology software of all major American corporations, and as he told India Today, the US is not producing enough software and therefore software people, and India has been the force multiplier for it. Critics say we are underpaying Indians and taking away American jobs. It is totally wrong because you have to pay comparable wages as per American norms in every city. And if you take the comparable wages, these are quite high. He also points out that the median salary for a person working in an IT company is $122,000. And that, he says, if you take a look at a worker on an H-1B visa, there are various application fees and government filing fees, and that means another $35,000 to $50,000. that in fact makes it cheaper to hire local workers, provided, as you say, one is available. And that's the point that people make, that there is a skill shortage in the US, and that is the reason. It's not just that Indians are going there and making use of cheap labor, but there is a genuine skill shortage that exists, which America will have to think about. And if they start taking out a lot of the top techies that are there, America will begin to lose its competitive edge. That's the warning a lot of experts are saying. Now, Indian IT companies, meanwhile, have already taken other protective measures. During Trump's first term, when they saw H-1B delays and denials rising sharply because of stricter regulations, top Indian IT companies told us that they ramped up local hiring in America. Now, TCS in 2020 claimed to have hired around 20,000 locals over 5 years, and Infosys also said to have done that. Now, besides that, Indian IT companies have tapped opportunities for what is called nearshoring by positioning employees in locations that are in the same time zones as the US market. So, South America, for instance, has emerged as a key nearshoring location to serve the USA, and alongside, India has emerged as a key destination of global capability centers, or GCCs, which are captive units run by global MNCs. Now, in these GCCs, a lot of the Indian tech people are employed in many senses, mitigating the whole problem of rejection from the US. So there's a lot more jobs available now in India because of these GCC centers that have come up. What experts are saying is that while India should fight to retain whatever advantages it gets from the H-1B Indian IT company, H-1B visas, Indian IT companies should use the phase-out time to open a whole new vista for themselves. Now, one of the experts that I spoke to, who deals with India-US relations regularly, told me, and I'm quoting him, "It is a wake-up call for us to up our game. Indians have largely migrated to the US to get employment and join the mass slaving class, as he calls it." And he points to that few have become CEOs. Few Indians have become CEOs of top companies. Very few have created multi-billion-dollar companies on their own, as say a Musk has done. This, he says, could be the turning point for Indian companies to turn into giants themselves rather than play a supportive role. The impending crisis should push the Modi government to launch initiatives that can turn India into a global hub of innovation and technology, besides generating much more manufacturing jobs. One example of that is how India lured the multinational giant Apple with production-linked incentives to set up manufacturing units in India. Not only is it helping us earn revenue, Apple is helping us earn revenue, with India projected to manufacture a third of all iPhones by 2027, third of all iPhones sold in the world, mind you. It has also helped create over 100,000 jobs for Indians. So there are ways that India can mitigate the kind of damage that Donald Trump could do with his immigration policy. And let's also be very clear that India must work on policies to become an alternative to China on the global value chain, which will increase American dependence on Indian manufacturing. As you know, Donald Trump has been pushing for higher tariffs to be levied against China, something like 60%. And if that happens, then the world will be looking for alternatives. India should be ready to do that with global value chains. To sum up, Trump's coming may well turn out to be another COVID moment for India, an opportunity to make a quantum leap in reforms and free ourselves from the shackles of dependence. For more details, do read the India Today cover story on the subject, which was researched jointly by my colleagues Anilesh Mahajan, Ajay Sukumaran, and Jumana Shah. Thank you for being with me on this episode of Nothing But the Truth. I look forward to having you with me next week. Nothing but the truth.